You are welcome to the maiden edition of Football Education with Nii Ayi Ridwan Aryee. And today, I'm about to enlighten you on what we call OTT. OTT. Now, I know that at the start of the Ghana Premier League, you've seen some changes with the coverage. You've seen that StarTime is no more working with the GFA and also covering the Ghana Premier League. But you've seen that they are free-to-air games. People are enjoying the games on some of our traditional media, free-to-air. I know this has generated a lot of topics and a lot of questions in the minds of the football fans. People are asking, how are the clubs going to benefit since we have free-to-air games, for everybody? And now people are asking, where is StarTime? And now to let you know, this falls under the topic called OTT. I know people will be asking, what is OTT? What is OTT? OTT simply means over the top. Over the top. And now OTT has been in the system for quite some time now. Let's go deep into it. There was a discussion at the Afro Sports Summit last year, and I was there. And within this discussion, I learned a lot about the OTT, and I'm about to let you watch and also learn from what I also learned from there. Now, OTT is when content providers deliver media directly straight to the use of it via the internet without using channels like the traditional media. And examples of OTT are Netflix, Seek, and StarTime. Do you remember Seek? Kotoko, Seek, Nana Ponsan's era. Now we'll go deep into it. Relax. So now the question is OTT a realistic, viable alternative income source? Talking about an income source for the Premier League itself, for the GFA, and also for the various individual clubs as well. So to help enlighten you and give you this knowledge, I have these people that I have to introduce to you. I have John Boafo. John Boafo is a sports and marketing strategist, and John Boafo is the one who did all the questioning. And now with those seated who are about to give you the breakdown, they are well endowed and high personalities in the football business or in the football fraternity. We have Chris Miles, and Chris Miles is a global diversity and inclusion strategist, African Renaissance and Diaspora Network. And then we have Senzo Mbata, the current CEO for the Botswana Premier League. And Senzo Mbata has been the CEO for Simba FC in Tanzania, and he has also been the CEO for Yanga FC also in Tanzania. He was also part of the World Cup committee back in 2010 in South Africa. And Nana Aponsa is the former CEO of Kumasi Asante Kotoko and also the current president of FC Petrocam in Moldova. And the first question is, looking at the high internet cost and economic challenges some of our countries faces, especially Ghana, is OTT the alternative? This question was thrown to Mr. Senzo Mbata.
Our first guest is the CEO of Botswana Football League, Mr. Senzo Mbata. Welcome. So as the CEO of Botswana Football League, how do you perceive the potential for OTT broadcasting in Africa, considering the high internet costs and economic challenges that some of our countries face?
First of all, I think we should commend the strides that technology has seen our sport achieve over the years. Thank you. Yeah. As I was saying, that the advantages that I spoke about, the cost of data, infrastructure in our stadia. For OTT to work, it needs a certain infrastructure for it to be able to work at optimal. But looking at the positives, there are a number of technologies which are out there that can assist clubs and especially the leagues, especially when you have a collective contract where your broadcast it's a shared sort of a split. You split the revenue amongst all your clubs that are playing in the league. So there are a lot of opportunities that one can explore. But as I said, it needs a lot of thorough planning and understanding the environment you're operating in.
After listening to Mr. Senzo Mbata, you get to know that OTT is one of the best way or one of the viable tools to monetize and also to generate revenue for the system. But there is a lot of work to be done. There are a lot of things that we need to, put in place before, we can accept the OTT channel here, specifically here in Ghana. But there is a lot to it. There are a lot of works that need to be done before accepting the OTT channel to monetize and generate the revenue. Because if the people don't fall in love with the craft, how are they going to subscribe and also for you to monetize and generate the revenue? So there are a lot of works to be done. We don't need to lie to ourselves. We listen to Mr. Senzo Bata. He's sitting on the fact that, the OTT channel is one of the best viable tool to monetize and generate revenue. But then we need thorough planning. We need a lot of things to put in place. There is a lot of work to be done, which in the Ghana football system, 1% hasn't been done yet. But then, we accepted the OTT channels here without knowing the implications involved. We accepted the OTT channel without knowing our ways around it, without we not putting things in place, without even letting the fans fall in love with the craft that we want to put on the OTT for people to subscribe and purchase before the monetization will come and also it will generate revenue. The second question was thrown to Nana Ayi, and as for him, he has worked hand in hand with the OTT channel. He brought it to Kumasi Asante Kotoko, which has been a failure as I'm talking to you now. So let's listen to him very well and let's learn something from it. Now, this is the question. Considering age groups and demographics, how does OTT appeal to the fans fairly? You understand? Fairly. Because we have people who really love football or who are falling in love with the clubs that they are poor or they can't, they are less privileged. But we don't have to deprive them of their own rights. We have to appeal to all of them fairly. So let's listen to what Nana Ayi has to say about this question.
Thank you very much. First and foremost, in every sport or every event, you need to understand that the number of people within the arena are not your full followership. That there are several other people interested in the event who need to catch a glimpse of the event without necessarily being in the arena. If you take Accra Sports Stadium just behind us, the total capacity is about 40,000. So you can imagine that if a team like House of Folk is playing at Accra Sports Stadium and they have a following of about 5 million, you can only get a small percentage to access the game. How do the others who are not able to get into the arena access the event? And the only means is through the OTT channels. However, you should be able to monetize the OTT channels to be able to create that viable revenue source. There can never be a time where a team or any event is able to get all the interested participants into one arena. I think the biggest football stadium in the world is a capacity of about 100,000. I have been to a game in Morocco where a team like Raja Casablanca had the stadium filled to capacity, and the fans behind the stadium were more than those in the stadium. But they could not watch the game. They could only sing and, interchange tunes with those in the stadium. However, if you are able to create an avenue where even fans outside the jurisdiction of the event venue can access the event, then that is a better way of monetizing your product. For instance, if somebody is going to come to the Accra Sports Stadium, pay for transportation, come all the way from a venue that is far and spend, let's say, a total of $10 to get to a game. And the same person can say, okay, I'm going to have access to the game. Instead of coming all the way from Takoradi or Cape Coast to Accra, I can pay $2.50 to access the game. They will choose that alternative. I remember when we signed up to Seek, the idea was that if we were able to get even 50,000 of our fans in the diaspora, for instance, who are not able to come to Ghana to watch our games. But of course, we did not have rights to the Premier League, which had already been given to a rights holder. But our Champions League games, the prelim stages where we had the rights, if we could get 50,000 people, or let's say 100,000 people outside to watch the game on SIC and pay $2.50 per game, then you'll be getting about $250,000 for just one game, which was far more than we were getting the entire season for being part of a Premier League. For instance, if you ask any Premier League club currently how much are they making from the TV rights, it's about $30,000 per season. However, a club like House of Folk Asante Kotoko could make that in just a single game if they had rights to, access, or monetize these games through the OTT. Of course, it's a broader conversation when you have other clubs involved. However, we also focused on behind the scenes. Like you can see now, teams like Tottenham, Man U and the rest, some of them are signing up to Amazon Prime, etc., to be able to monetize their behind the scenes footages. And so it is a viable way of making money, but to bridge the gap between those we call born before computer and the current generation, you should be able to market it and make it easy to access. Because some of the challenges we had initially with SIC was the fact that some people did not know how to navigate around the platform. And we had to ensure constant education to make sure that people could access it easily.
Okay, so after listening to Nana Ramponsa, you yourself will get to know that he is only emphasizing on the fact that we need revenue, monetization, revenue, but then he didn't even hit on the fact that he worked, or he put a lot of things in place before accepting the OTT, or he made sure that everything was on point. Like he put a lot of work for him to even lay down some of the works that he did before his people accepted the OTT. But no, it's for him, all he care about is generating revenue, monetization, generating revenue. And giving example about Ghana and Accra Sports Stadium, he said we should imagine. That one should be an imagination. When it comes to Ghana, it should be an imagination. But when it comes to Raja Casablanca in Morocco, it's a fact. He was there. He saw the fans, overflooded the stadium and blah, blah, blah. And that is why he think we need the OTT. You understand? What he saw in Raja Casablanca is part of the reasons why he said it is part of the reason why he think OTT channel is good for monetization and creating revenue and all. But then when it comes to Ghana, for him to hit on Ghana and give us example, he said we should imagine. He gave us imagination. So you see, in Ghana, most of our big men that we love and we trust, they don't really understand our own system. Mentioning money too, mentioning the figures too, he's mentioning dollars. And then we have dollars here and $5 and $2. Why not in cedis? We are dealing with Ghana. And you, Nana Ramponsa, have heard Kotoko, Kumasi Asante Kotoko, one of the biggest clubs in Ghana. You have heard it, and then you brought the SIC. So the SIC mind came not because our Kumasi Asante Kotoko and Accra Suffolk as fans have overflooded the whole of the stadium, and then you think OTT is the best way to create revenue for them. But no, you were emphasizing on the fact that you were in Raja Casablanca, and then you were in Morocco Raja Casablanca game, and then the place was overflooded with fans, and then OTT is the best and blah blah blah. But Charlie, let's be serious as a country for one. The third question was thrown to Mr. Senzo Mbata once again, and this is it. The question goes like, what are the strategies to use to leverage OTT to reach and engage with the fans? You understand? We need to leverage the OTT and also for the people to understand so that we can engage with them. You understand? So now let's listen to Mr. Senzo Mbata, what he has to say about leveraging OTT to reach and engage with all the fans across.
It's a very loaded question, if you think about it. I think my audience will agree with me. We're still grappling with the understanding of the OTT itself. How do you access it? What platforms are there for it? How do we ensure that legally we are protected? How do we ensure that we don't infringe on people's rights? You know, just before I answer your question, I mean, my colleague on the left spoke about the rights that have already been sold to the main broadcaster for all the 16, 18 clubs in Ghana. What we did I've been in Botswana now for almost 5 months. We're starting a new season. What we did, we went back to the broadcaster and said, please, we ask that you rescind certain rights that we've already sold to you. Because, you know, these broadcasters are very smart. They will buy everything that is digital, whether it's on satellite or anything. They will buy everything at once and give you one lump sum. So, but we've asked them to give us back those rights. So now we've got the rights. Now we can resell these rights as digital rights. Now I will have a digital partner that's going to broadcast my matches as from next season. So you talk about how do we ensure that we engage our fans. If you go to the app now, for instance, the Vision View app for our Premier League, so the app will allow us to be able to interact with whomever is watching our matches. So we are able to interact with them. We are able to ask them to predict the score. We are able to ask them to predict the goal scorers. So in that way, we are forcing them to engage with you in that aspect. So that's where things like your advertisers, your betting companies, they come into the fray, because now they see the traffic and the engagement that is happening between yourself and your fans. Not only your fans, you know. Remember that I said earlier on, it's not only your fans that are interacting with your product. Anyone that is a customer that is consuming that particular content becomes your fan, so to speak. So the engagement is something that is really at the back end of the content that you are driving to your people. So there are so many avenues and technologies that one can use at the back of the OTT to ensure that you are able to engage with your fans. And the most obvious one is the advertisers. I mean, if you've signed a very good deal with betting companies or one betting company, and then their partner in this platform, that's money on its own. So there are so many that one can think of or put forward. But the most obvious one is that having an ability to interact with somebody that is sitting on a second screen on the other side, it allows you an opportunity to engage with them.
All right, so if we say we'll be fair to each other, look at the beauty of the Tanzania Premier League. Look at Simba, the beauty of Simba. Look at the beauty of Yanga. And this man who has been the CEO of these two clubs is telling us that we are still struggling with the understanding of the OTT. So you can imagine. Okay, and also with the OTT, these people that have these apps or that create these platforms, they are very smart, very, very smart, and they will buy all the rights, you know, guiding everything concerning that particular system or that particular field that you've ventured them into. They will make sure that they buy all the rights, and then they control every visuals that go out there or everything that goes out there. And that is why you have to be very smart and understand the OTT to the core before you bring them in. But here in Ghana, an OTT channel is our main broadcaster, or was our main broadcaster for the Ghana Premier League. How are we going to survive? The whole Ghana don't understand and don't know anything about OTT. But an OTT channel became the sole broadcaster, like the boss in all the games around the Ghana Premier League. Is it fair to Ghanaians? Is it fair to us? Okay, I'm about to go deep again. And now the fourth question was thrown to Chris Miles. And Chris Miles, that represents the diaspora. Chris Miles has been part of the organization of the Super Bowl, looking at the halftime performance and everything, the Super Bowl. Chris Miles is also part of the organizers. And let's listen to what Chris Miles is about to say. Fourth question that goes to him is, what lessons can African sports team learn from the successful countries with similar economical challenges that we have here in Africa, specifically Ghana? You understand? Because there has been a lot of African countries with similar economical challenge, but OTT and the strategies are really working over there, and they are monetizing and generating a lot of revenues out of it. So let's listen to Mr. Chris Miles.
I represent the African Renaissance and Diaspora Network, and it's a consortium of organizations whose responsibility is to amplify the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And so we have to create unique platforms and activations that can get out to the masses on a global scale. What I'd encourage anyone out there to do, whether you're in business, whether you're an athlete, whether you're a professional sports league, is to leverage your asset. We talked, Sinzo, you talked about branding. It's important for teams to brand their players. This is a way for teams to brand themselves, players to brand themselves. It allows you the ability to create the narrative. You get to control the narrative. Typically in leagues and teams, they'll control your narrative. They'll allow you to say so much. They'll allow you to do so much. But as an individual, as an influencer, creating your own platform, this gives you your own voice, creating your own narrative. So utilizing that, honestly, is where you're able to create something more unique than the stereotypical athlete that just says everything politically correct. This gives them, her, a platform to speak openly, and that may be what engages the common fan or the common person to acknowledge them and want to be active. And then you can just monetize that.
Okay, and if you listen to Chris Miles himself also very vividly, you get to know that he's also emphasizing on the fact that there is a lot of work to be done before the OTT channel, can really be accepted. It made it really clear that there are a lot of works to be done before monetization. But in Ghana, we really accept the thing without thinking about the things that has to be done before. We just flip pages. We jump into conclusion of creating or generating revenue and monetizing everything without the fans even engaging in it. The fourth question will make you really understand what I'm trying to mean. All right, so the fourth question went back to Nana Amponsa, who, like I keep on saying, has worked hand in hand with an OTT channel, which is the Seek. He brought them to Kotoko. Now, let's go deep into it. Let's listen to his question and listen to his submission as well. And the question goes like, to be able to reach out to your fans in the diaspora, how did you tackle the low-income potential local subscription?
Basically, two of the key means of generating revenue from OTT is either through the usual pay-per-view or free distribution but advertising, monetizing the advertising side of things. So, for instance, we had a sponsor who was interested, who felt that initially the sponsor did not understand that we did not have the rights to the Premier League games. So the sponsor felt that if we were it was possible to broadcast all our Premier League games on our own channels or YouTube channels, then the sponsor was willing to pay a lot more to advertise on our channels instead of going to traditional television. So if the entire digital rights were not given to one entity, then we would have had the opportunity to say, okay, we want all our fans to be able to watch our games free on a particular OTT channel. However, we can have the data to be able to convince a sponsor that this particular game, we had 500,000 people watching it. And therefore, if you pay a certain amount, you can advertise during the games to these individuals. That way, the low-income people are not paying for it, but they are giving you the data that you can monetize, because data is money. If there is a sponsor who acknowledges that, okay, when it's pay-per-view, you have just 50,000 people watching, but when it's free, you have 500,000 people watching, then the sponsor will be willing to offset that cost and give you money because they want the data to be able to sell their product. So that is how you balance it.
So with the Sikh, Nanaya Amponsa and the Kumasi Asati Kotoko and Sikh recorded low subscription. If they will be fair to each other, if they will be fair to the public and tell us, they recorded low subscription from the diaspora and also Ghana. Everywhere, Kotoko didn't really have huge number or huge traffic on the OTT channel which they brought to Ghana. That is called the Sikh. Now let me tell you something that you don't know. You see, the whole Ghana Premier League was being controlled or run by an OTT, which they believe they have to make money, or things has to be monetized from there to generate revenue. So they don't want to give the content to anybody. Now listen, because we've had numerous deals at the GFA whereby the GFA do not really come out clearly to explain the monies being taken from these broadcasters to the various clubs, and we've had numerous issues from way back. So you see, within Nana Ampose's era at Kotoko, he was very smart to also think that then Kotoko also has to venture into an OTT so that they can also be able to monetize their own content. Now listen, this is what generated some problems within the times that Nana Amposa was the CEO of Kotoko, and also the GFA, which is headed by Mr. Kurt Okreku. Now listen, the OTT channel, which is covering the Ghana Premier League, talking about StarTime, owns the content, and they feel like this content, they don't have to share the content with other OTT channel for them to monetize the content. Listen, the Kotoko management, led by Nana Amposa, also wanted to have some of the rights or some of the contents from GFA or from StarTime so that they can also monetize them through their OTT channel, which is the SEEK. So now listen, StarTime is an OTT, and they are also for monetization and generating revenue. SEEK is only for Kotoko. SEEK wants Kotoko to also monetize and generate revenue for them. And SEEK will have to go for content from StarTime because StarTime is the only rightful owner to cover the whole Premier League. So ask yourself, where is SEEK going to get their content to show on their monetization app? This is it. And now this is where the truth comes in. The OTT channels are also good in giving out quality content, and our traditional or government media are not good in producing quality content. So this is where we need to have a discussion. We need to sit down, both of them, the OTT channel and also the traditional media, has to be represented by the FA to sit down with the OTT. So after complaining, this is the most important one for me, the most important one. Listen to the question, and it went straight to Mr. Senzo Mbata. And the question is, what is the conversation we need to have with African governments and organizations to support the growth of OTT for sports content? And let's listen to what Mr. Senzo Mbata has to say. And with this question, we will learn a lot because this is the way forward, how to make things work, with the OTT and also the football fraternity. Let's listen to Mr. Senzo Mbata.
Well, so earlier you mentioned the fact that you had to have conversations with some of the broadcasters to be able to so they can resend some of the rights that they had before. What's the conversation that we need to have also with African governments and organizations to support the growth of OTT broadcasting for sports content in the region?
I think that we cannot run away from the fact that the government broadcasters still have an upper hand in terms of how broadcast is done, especially when it is football. There's this element that they always say that football is a national sport, is a nation sport. So it means that you cannot only ring-fence it to the private broadcasters. So there must be certain content that must go to the public broadcaster. What I think the discussion that you should be having is that how do we found collaborations? By allowing the private players in the space to come into the space and enhancing whatever we're having. Let's be honest to each other. I mean, the product that you get from the broadcaster as a government broadcaster vis-a-vis the private broadcaster, those are two different products that you get out there. I think all of us agree here, whether we're a club or we are a federation of athletics or we're in a federation of volleyball, you want, when somebody's sitting in front of the TV or in front of the second screen or on your app, when you're watching a content, it must be as clear as possible, it must be eye-catching. Whoever is paying money on that particular advertisement, it must be something that is appealing. The aesthetics must be proper. I mean, I'm not digressing, but if you look at the product that we receive from the EPL, it's nothing more than the work that has been done to ensure that the product that goes out there attracts you to come and watch that particular match. So I think we should start having those discussions and say, you have your limitations in terms of the broadcast. How do you ensure that we work together to ensure that the quality of the production is at a level whereby all of us can benefit as a broadcaster, as a club, or as an advertiser going forward, you know. And I must say that today we talk about this topic of OTT as a topic that is easy to do. We must be honest that there's a great deal of work that needs to be done around the infrastructure, about around the strength of the internet itself, you know, the reach. You know, can you really broadcast, and somebody in the remote areas, can they access that particular content? So for me, it's sitting around the table and agreeing how best do we ensure that everybody benefits from it. Because if we do that, we can cover more than what we've agreed on the contracts. As an example, the Botswana TV would say to me that I will broadcast 60 matches per year. For your matches, but if I bring in a private partner who can assist with the OTT and production, that means we can do 160 matches per season. So everybody benefits, because now there's more matches on TV. That means the broadcaster has got leverage of showing even those matches through their channels. So you're quite right by saying that we need to have a discussion with stakeholders that are playing in the sport. From the CEO, former CEO Asante Kotoko was saying that, you know, there's also distribution of monies, because, you know, when we are 18 teams in the league, you cannot be getting more money like it happens in Europe, where Manchester would not be paid the same as Arsenal in terms of the broadcast rights and things like that. But unfortunately, we are here where we are. We have to find ways of ensuring that we augment those incomes by having things like OTT, ITV, so that we're able to diversify our income. Yes, you're right. There needs to be a discussion, and we see how we can better manage our situation in Africa.
And you see, this is where we all can't lie that the content that the OTT channels produce are much of a quality than the content that the traditional media or the government media produce. And we can all see that with the latest Premier League games that we are watching on TV, the free-to-air. We can see that we are enjoying low quality and everything is low. And this is why we can all not go with the fact that OTT channels produce quality content. If you watch the African Cup qualification and also the World Cup qualifications, you will see that the quality that they produce in our own stadium, our stadiums that we see not to be good or anything. I'm talking about the quality. You understand, the quality of the visuals that they produce, the content that they produce. You will see that when they bring their equipment from FIFA or CAF and they come and cover these qualifications with the national team, you see quality views, you see quality visuals, you see that the content they produce and they give to the fans or the viewers are quality. So ask yourself, is it the atmosphere? What is it? We need to change our ways. We need to make sure that we have these discussions which will enhance. We have to make sure that we have to make sure that we have these discussions which will enhance the quality and also, you know, the betterment of the Ghana Premier League. Thank you very much. My name is Nii Ayi Ridwan Aryee. This is the maiden edition of Football Education with Nara. This is your boy Nii Ayi Ridwan Aryee, and we are welcome. Thank you very much for having time with me, Nii Ayi Ridwan Aryee. And the next time we will meet once again on Football Education with Nara. Chua, no man, you know,